This is the Convergence.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Convergence, where every episode we talk about Web 3.0 and climate change, sustainability, and how we have a convergence of those things to help solve some of the global problems that we have. So far, if you've been following the show, it's been super fascinating. We've had some amazing guests that have been talking about everything from the early days of the idea of crypto and blockchain on through the folks that are out innovating and doing lots of amazing projects right now. Which brings me to our guest this week, Ryan Tregaskes, who's the COO of Central Business Development. Now, I will tell you, Central is one of the sponsors of this show, but they're a sponsor of this show because they know that people need to be educated around the topics of blockchain and NFTs and all of the things that are happening out there. And they wanted this to be that platform that we could go out, we could communicate with the investor community or with just folks that are interested in these topics. So Ryan, thank you for joining me today. And we're not far away. I'm in Tempe right now. You're just over in Arcadia, right?
We're in Arcadia. Yes, Derek. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I want to let's chat a little bit about your background first and how that sort of translates to the work that you do with Central. And then I know we want to talk about a specific project here once we get a little bit farther into this. But Ryan, where did you come? Were you an Arizona guy? Like where'd you come from? What was your background before this?
Yeah, so a third generation Arizona native, which there are not many of us around anymore, it seems like, with everybody moving here.
I've been here almost 20 years, and I'm calling myself a native now, and nobody's argued with me. They're like, yeah, technically you sort of are at this point. But so third generation Arizona native, which means agriculture, cattle, or copper, right?
That's right. So agriculture.
Agriculture, okay.
Absolutely. So my great-grandfather had the first tire shop in Phoenix. Wow. So he worked on the Roosevelt Dam when that was being built with the first mobile tire repair service. So we've been here quite a while.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So my transition, it's been an interesting road for me. So growing up in an agricultural family, we grew cotton and other row crops, which is massive around here, or used to be at least.
Cotton, copper, and cattle, right? That used to be the was that right? Cotton, copper, and cattle was what the motto used to be many years ago.
Yeah, exactly right. Still is. Still on our state seal. Exactly.
It is. Yeah, interesting.
Went to school, went to college here in state, and always had an interest in finance. Even growing up in the agricultural field, I was always good with numbers, and that's what interested me the most. So I was part of the first graduating class out of WP Carey, and got my BA there, and decided that I wanted to go down that road. I wasn't sure how. And during my junior year is when 9/11 happened. And so any dreams of moving to New York to work on Wall Street at that time were pretty well squashed. So decided to go into the family business. And my focus as I got into agriculture and received my licenses for crop consulting and agronomy, I really focused in on implementing new technologies into the agricultural field. And that industry as a whole in certain areas does lag behind on incorporating new technologies that are in other emerging markets or established markets. So I was always looking around, what can we bring in to basically maximize our product, efficiencies, and cost less to the grower.
I mean, it's a yield-based business, right? I mean, it's all about yields. There's nothing else that matters in that business other than the end. The outcome is always a better yield.
That's exactly right. And so I focused in more on plant health and plant nutrition, fertilizer programs, and did general consulting work for various growers here in state, and then moved into outside consulting with large industrial farms across the United States, implementing strategies on irrigation and nutrient management. And during this time, I always kept my eye on the financial world. So was a day trader during my off time at home that I had. And then in 2012 was introduced into Bitcoin and blockchain. And so that really piqued my interest to see that there was a new type of digital currency that at the time, most people were still trying to understand, what is this? How does it work? And so started
I
dabbling.
think that's true with most people still trying to understand, right?
Exactly.
That's why we're here.
Trouble right now.
It's tricky because so many of the people that I interview for the show are like, they've been around this for so long that they're like, oh yeah, it's sort of common sense. But a lot of people, I spoke at a CEO breakfast this morning and I said, how many of you understand blockchain? 20 CEOs in the room, not a single one raised their hand. And I'm not talking about CEOs of like dry cleaners. I'm talking about powerful CEOs that have no idea. They don't understand it yet.
Yeah, exactly. And the amount of time that it takes to be able to research and wrap your head around this entire industry is massive. So it's very difficult to dedicate that amount of time just to learn about something new in an area that, will this work for my business? Is this something that I should do? And so there's a lot of ins and outs and variables that need to be completely understood before you really dive down that road.
I was going to say it's a really good point, and I anybody who's listened to the previous episodes knows Michael Moyo's journey. From creating NASDAQ indexes to quitting, and spending 2.5 years reading every book and article and watching every TED Talk he possibly can. Most people don't have 2.5 years to take a sabbatical to learn about a new industry.
Exactly right. Exactly. And so there's definitely a void within this industry for shows like this to where we could come in and have these open dialogue, these open conversations in layman's terms where people can understand, not get in the weeds too much, and just have a general education and discussion about this and really start the road and path of people being able to understand this whole ecosystem.
Absolutely. So how was that transition? You started to pay attention a little bit in about 2012, you said? Then how did that sort of go from there?
So bought and sold some Bitcoin. Luckily, it wasn't one of the people that paid for a pizza with an entire Bitcoin back in the day. But I wish I still held on to a lot of the initial coins that I bought. That's for sure. So there was, being more of what I considered a day trader in the
you're in and out
market. I was in and out quite a bit, which was definitely the wrong thing to do. But it piqued my interest and caused me to really dive down the rabbit hole of what this actually is and what can we do with it. What are the applications of this? And so continued along that journey with my consulting work in the agricultural field and new technologies through there. And in 2017, decided to make the transition back into strictly finance. That was my passion. That is my true love. And it was time for me just as a personal change. Yeah. And so 2017, Central Business Development was formed. And we are a blockchain and crypto asset development company. So basically anything that is blockchain related, protocols, APIs that need to be developed within the ecosystem, we build. We work with government agencies as well as the enterprise. And a major focus of our company has always been R&D. We really like to be ahead of the curve or even create the curve on new ideas and new applications of blockchain and how could this apply to really any business and become more efficient. That's taking that approach from my agricultural field of efficiency and bringing that over to this space is how I initially incorporated the two together.
That makes sense. So everything from, we want to develop blockchain contracts for use with our customers. It might be an application. It could be maybe you want to make a token. We've talked a little bit about the NFT market as well and how NFTs are in the art space, but there's other things you could do with it. We've been chatting on the side about, how 501c3s could use this as a methodology to raise capital. So what are some of the use cases? Like what are some of those things? Unfortunately, I think Web 3.0 was really dominated by the conversation of crypto for a very, very long time. Mm-hmm. The last 6 months, it's been a lot more about NFTs. But what are the applications here? I mean, the true applications of things that you can do with blockchain and with blockchain contracts that might be sort of, Michael and I talked about how dry cleaners could be revolutionized by this. What are some of those applications that you're seeing that people might not think about until they really dig into this a little bit more?
Well, to start with NFTs. So we are looking at and have dove into NFTing tangible items. So not just pieces of artwork or anything digital, but anything in the real world as well. So you're looking at vehicles to jewelry, watches, real estate, basically anything that needs a record to it. So it's adding another level of security. It's almost like adding another title to a car, where you have transactional history. Everything is recorded on the blockchain. It's all verified. And so we can take NFTs to an entire new level, to where really we're just scratching the surface on their capabilities at this point, to where the options are just completely limitless. And moving forward from there, as far as blockchain goes, it's the same. We're just scratching the surface, where logistics and supply chain is a major user of this now. The Fortune 1000, basically they all have that system.
I think it's 71% of the Fortune 1000 has a department or is working with a company that's developing blockchain technology. Wow. I mean, I don't remember the exact stat. I think you and I talked about it one time before. It's amazing. I mean, it is, every big company is moving in this direction. So before we talk about more applications, what's the difference between blockchain and an NFT? Is NFT something that comes from the blockchain? Are they separate products? From a developmental sort of technical perspective, how are those two things interrelated?
So if you think, to put it in an easy way that's understand, think as blockchain as your iPhone. And think of cryptocurrency, NFTs, any other protocol as your app on your phone. And so blockchain is the heart of the system, and it creates different blocks as transactions are verified. But anything else that runs off of it are just an extension of the blockchain. And so that's a really good, I don't think I've asked anybody of all the guests I've had on but before that question, but it's really, I think, important to know, because it's foundational to understand that the others are apps, but blockchain itself is sort of the foundation. It's the platform, it's the Apple, it's the Samsung of the world. And for the new listener's sake, maybe let's talk about what blockchain is for a moment. Essentially, it's a digital ledger, I should say. It's a digital ledger that can be added to, but there's a verification process to adding to that blockchain that makes it so secure. Absolutely. So once any transaction that occurs on the blockchain is verified through third parties, so it's all open source. And it's basically, this is what crypto mining is, right? So an easy way to describe this is Bitcoin mining. So when a transaction occurs, you have to verify that transaction was accurate, and it goes out into hexadecimal. So there's a massive amount of combinations to get that transaction correct. And if you are the first and most accurate at verifying that transaction, that's when new Bitcoins are issued to users. So that's how new Bitcoin is issued out into the public, and that is what mining actually is. So you have supercomputers all over the world that are verifying the transactions on the blockchain, on the public ledger. And so that's how this can apply to every business, basically, that everything that you are doing is open source and verified.
And the blockchain is decentralized, which I think is important too, right? So it doesn't exist in a single place. It's on millions potentially of computers all around the world that all are communicating with each other in real time and verifying those changes. So if a former block in the chain says, make sure that Derek and Ryan each get 50-50, and Ryan tries to add a block to the chain that says now it's 40-60, that's not going to work, because there's a million computers out there that are going to go, no, the program doesn't let me do that. It's not even a matter of being able to perform fraud. It's just not technically possible.
Exactly right. And so that, like I said, layers of security for any transactional purposes or data that's moving through the blockchain, which is there's record keeping that's available on it. Does stay anonymized, and so there's options, and these are offshoots that start pulling out the blockchain. The same thing, to where it's still a public ledger that is verified. There's anonymity that's involved with it as well, but it will start throwing red flags if there's issues.
So I want to talk with you for a few moments about Evergreen Carbon Credits, one of the sponsors of this show. I started working with Evergreen when I was telling a friend of mine who's involved with that company about my efforts to try to learn more about blockchain, NFTs, crypto, all the things in this space. And he showed me Evergreen. Evergreen was a really unique solution. I've looked at carbon credits in the past. I've been in the sustainability industry for almost 15 years. I understood what they were. You were buying an offset to offset the carbon footprint that you or your company has. But I also understood the challenges with that. They're sold in very, very large blocks, and then people break those blocks up and try to sell individual credits or small clusters of credits to businesses. And that creates some room for fraud, for people to not be up and up on what that project is, if that carbon credit is real. And there's, challenges with that. And you can Google it right now and find there's a big case in Europe going on about fraudulent carbon credits. But what Evergreen did, I thought, was really unique. They took this idea of NFTs and they took blocks of carbon credits and broke those things down into tens of thousands or even millions of individual carbon credits. They can actually fraction those even out to a tenth of a carbon credit if they needed to. And they were able to then create a smart contract around that carbon credit so that you can track it back to its origin. You can find out what project it was associated with, but you are also guaranteed that the carbon credits you're getting from Evergreen are the real deal. You get that certificate, you get that certification that only the blockchain can do. So that's why it made sense for them to come on as a sponsor of this show. We're talking about all this new technology, and with new technology comes higher energy usages in some senses. And Evergreen is here to help offset that. If you want to look to maybe improve your image in the marketplace, maybe you're looking to offset some of your carbon footprint, not even just for your image, but actually for the sake of the planet, head on over to evergreencarboncredits.com and check out what they do. You can buy credits for as little as $11, and you'll get the certificate and the NFT that you can put in your wallet that shows that you've actually made that contribution. And that money, particularly right now with the projects they're working on, is going to reforestation in the Amazon. I think that's something we can all really get behind, particularly when we understand that the environment, the climate we're all connected to it. It doesn't matter if we're putting off emissions here in the US or if it's happening in Mexico. It all contributes to the same global problem. So why not be part of a global solution with Evergreen Carbon Credits? So let's go back then. Let's switch back to other gear. So what are other applications here? I know we've talked about things on some of the other shows, like the elimination of the county clerk's office, because the county clerk is sort of acting like one centralized source in a contract chain. But with the decentralization, you don't really need those things anymore.
Exactly right. So there's, you have peer-to-peer financing that's available. It opens up banking to the entire global network, to where if you're in the middle of Central America and don't have access to a bank, as long as you have an internet connection, cryptocurrency will allow you to have basic banking autonomy. And so if you need loans, if you would like to have transactions from wallet to wallet, you have a form of banking available to you. So to me, the outreach that this has and the global network being decentralized is a major, major factor that I don't think has been quite explored enough, where there's other applications and uses for this, to where it's been a lot of investor driven. It's up to this point in the peer-to-peer lending systems for larger companies or startups, but there's other groups, a lot of nonprofits that are going out building houses for third world countries, et cetera, to where there's loans and payments and donations that can be made to get into those groups as well that can filter directly back and help.
That is really interesting. Well, it gives me an idea for a $100 billion idea, which is how do you change accounting, from the ground up? Because I'm involved in a small accounting firm, and I actually just recorded a session with them earlier today. And so much of what we do is bookkeepers in the ledger. Boom, boom, this receipt for $12.18. All right, do I have the receipt? Let me put it in. Do I categorize the expense properly? I mean, it's repetitive things that we're doing hundreds of thousands, if not millions of times a month, just in that business, that all could go away if a client was paying with a cryptocurrency, right? Because the documentation the ledger would already be created. Everything would be based upon the blockchain contract. Everything would get put in the right category. You could send the money for your state taxes, for your payroll taxes. You could almost generate a tax return off that information with all we do is just keep purchasing the way we're purchasing, but using a digital currency, and we can completely eliminate the whole need for any sort of back-end accounting.
Yeah, absolutely. And you
Dang,
look
I need to build that. Central business development available. No, I mean that's a heck of an idea to think about how things like that could upend an entire industry. I just think it's fascinating to me. It's like the horse and buggy, right? I mean, if you owned a stable in downtown New York City, in 1899, you thought you had it good.
Yes.
Well,
absolutely. Yeah.
1919, you're done, right? I mean, between the time that 9/11 happened and now, I mean, the whole world is a different place. And imagine what it was, what it can be 15 or 20 years from now.
Yeah, absolutely. You take El Salvador, for example, and what they're doing down there and their adoption of Bitcoin as a national currency. And how that started was in a little fishing village. They ran a trial down there to see how would this work in the monetary system, replacing fiat with digital currency. Yep. And how that basically that was a 5 to 10 year project initially, and it was completely adopted, I believe, in 2 years within the entire country. How it took off down there, and you could go down and there's a little stand where you can buy fish or snow cones at the market, and there's signs everywhere that they accept Bitcoin. And that gives the receiver of the Bitcoin and the holders as well, the purchasers, that they can now start moving across international lines, and to where you don't have the fiat exchange issues that you do anymore. And so you've now turned yourself into a global bank, technically, basically, is what you're doing. And so this is why
arbitrage currency traders might not like that statement that you just made. Well, and I know some of them.
They're up until very recently, there has been a lot of pushback by the large banks, and has been within the last 6 to 8 months the adoption and acceptance of cryptocurrency. And basically, they're going to have to get on board or get left behind, because it's not going away. It's only going to continue to move forward from here.
Ryan, can we talk about that for a minute? Because I just want to mark the date. I know this episode won't come out for a few weeks, but it's May 12th of 2020. And there's been a pretty radical sell-off of cryptocurrencies. I'm going to look. I have not been looking, but I'm going to do it for the sake of research. My crypto portfolio is down 67% in the last year. Bitcoin right now is trading at 28,000. From what, a high of 69?
66, I believe. Yeah.
Actually, I'm showing it actually hit 69 for 1 second back a bit ago. So, I mean, think of, wow. Now, why do we feel like that's occurring? Is it an education piece? Is it a sell-off from maybe the Wall Street banks? That, what do you think is driving that sell-off right now? And is this maybe an opportunity, I guess, is the other question I'm thinking.
Well, everything's on sale, right? That's the way you have to look.
We don't know how much more it goes on sale, but it is on sale right now.
That's the risk, right? So total, it's total. Hold on for dear life. And the contributing factors, there's a lot, and it depends on who you talk to as well. Sure. Right now, the date that you just mentioned, we have an impending recession coming our way.
We have a global war. We have interest rates rising. Exactly. There's a lot of things in the regular economy. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, and which is a driver to where when liquidity starts to dry up, there's money that has to be used for other. We have gas that's $5 and $6 a gallon. You can't find baby formula, so there are other economic issues that are driving this as well. However, like I said, it's on sale. So El Salvador just purchased another 15 million worth of Bitcoin to add to their entire system. So it depends what view you have of it at this point. I mean, now is not the time to sell by any means, but it is a market correction. The numbers when Bitcoin was in the 60s, we knew it was overinflated at the time, and there had to be a bottom. And the 28 number that we're at right now was predicted that this will probably hit this, and we're riding right along the market projection right now. So,
and I do think the difference is, and this is something I learned on the show. I think it was the first recording I did. I was shocked to learn that Bitcoin is actually, we're going to run out very soon. 21 million coins. Once that 21 millionth coin gets mined through that process that you just explained, the blockchain contract shuts that whole process down. There's no more that can ever be created. And because, somebody said to me, commented on one of my comments about the show, and they said, yeah, but those guys, they'll probably just issue another 21 million. And I'm like, oh no, they won't. Because it's in the blockchain, unless they can get 1 million, every computer that mines in the world to all agree to break the law and break the rules of the blockchain, and it ain't going to happen. That's
No,
the end.
It can't be done. Once it's set and going, Bitcoin is not a mintable coin. So there is a finite amount that will be issued, and that's it. So when that day comes or starts approaching, it will be very interesting to see what the market does. And it depends on the global network at this point, to where are more countries going to start adopting this as payment, where the town where I live, you can pay your utility bill with crypto. They take Bitcoin and Doge at this particular time. Tesla's taking crypto as payment. So it's starting to roll, and the adoption is getting there. And really, that's what this industry needs. So we need more companies and agencies starting to embrace this as an actual currency. And to be honest with you, and people may not like to hear this, we do need some regulation.
Of course.
Yes, and what that does is add legitimacy to this industry, to where it is still the Wild West at this point, and people see that, and it shows in certain times, as we're experiencing right now, to where if we can have a little say-so, it at least legitimizes the entire process. So we'll see what happens. We don't foresee at this date anything coming very soon, but it's on its way.
Absolutely. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for joining us here on another episode, I guess, of the Convergence. All right, folks, until next time.
Thanks for listening to The Convergence. If you want more information about the topics you've heard here today, reach out to us at theconvergencepodcast.com.